Hello, everybody, and welcome to the future of IT documentation. I'm super excited to be here at JNUC to be able to talk to you about what we're seeing going on in the world of documentation and how you can improve your team's efficiency through documentation. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Nadir Merchant, the General Manager and Chief Technology Officer of IT Glue. I've been at IT Glue for 7 years now as we've grown up from being a tiny little startup serving IT teams like yourselves to now a fairly large organization serving over 15,000 IT teams and helping them with their documentation needs. So when we talk about documentation for IT, what does that really mean? Everybody has a bit of a different definition of what it really means. When we say documentation here at IT Glue, we're really talking about all of the information that you need to better serve your business, to be able to deliver all of the needs of the business that you have when it comes to managing and maintaining their IT infrastructure. So that goes from policies and procedures, documentation about how to do something. It means your vendor management documentation, all of your knowledge base articles, all of your asset management, whether that's hardware assets, software assets, and your passwords, right? The critical information you need to be able to access systems, to be able to solve problems or make changes. So if you're like a typical IT team, all of this information is spread out over many different sources. You've got your SOPs in like a SharePoint or a wiki type system. You've got all kinds of knowledge buried in messaging and IMs, and whether it's Teams or Slack. You've got articles in Drive, in SharePoint's, Google Drive type systems where you get your SOPs buried in there. And then you've got structured information in systems like Excel or other structured systems where you're using them for asset management. Maybe you have a CMDB in place where you've got your asset management going on. But all this information is spread over so many different sources that your technicians are wasting an inordinate amount of time having to go jump between different systems to be able to find the information they need in order to be able to solve problems. 9.3 hours a week is a huge time sink for your employees. And this is causing them to be able to unable to keep up with the demands on them to be able to do their jobs. So beyond this information sprawl, having this information across different places, it's often also siloed. Different people have information in different systems because there's no standardized way of approaching documentation inside the IT organization. Oftentimes, information is missing or it's inaccurate because it's not well maintained, again, because there's no systems in place to be able to do that sort of thing. So information gets outdated, it's siloed, people don't know where to find it, and there's no culture around building documentation. So we believe that IT professionals need a single place to be able to do all of their knowledge management, ensure that all of their SOPs, their instructions on how to do something live in a single place, alongside all of their hardware and software information, the asset management information, which is often siloed separately from that, all of the vendor management information, expiration dates, and most critically, passwords are all stored together into a single place. So that way, everybody knows exactly where to go and how to find information. And what's equally important is that not only is this information in one place, but it's all linked together because it's often used together. So when a technician is reading an SOP on how to do something, the important configuration information, the asset management information is there alongside that KB article, so that way they can easily look up the IP address that they need or what version of Windows is running on a server that they're trying to patch. And the passwords that they need in order to be able to access those systems are also there alongside the hardware and software documentation and the SOPs. So when they need to execute an SOP, everything is together and they can do that very simply without having to jump between 3 different systems to be able to look up what is the firmware version of a switch, what is the password that I need to access that switch, and what is the SOP in order to execute some task that I'm trying to execute on that switch. So in order to future-proof your documentation and solve these challenges, you need to have all of the information that you need at your fingertips. You need structure and standardization to your documentation. You need automation to ensure this information is kept up to date. And you need to build a documentation culture. So let's look at each of these areas and look at some tips on how you can actually solve these things. So the first of all is making sure that you've got all of your important asset information documented in a structured and simple way so it's easy for people to find that information. Your asset management information should be able to answer all of these questions that you see on the screen here. All of it should be complete with the OS, vendor, serial number, warranty information, and all the computer information that you need when you're looking at information about your different systems. All of this should be in a single tool where it's easy for you to find this information. It should all be consolidated so that way your technicians know exactly where to go to get information. They know how to find that information within the system that they're looking at, and to ensure that there are no inconsistencies in the information they're looking at. Now, it's extremely important that all this information is available at their fingertips. It's also equally important that that information is structured and standardized, so when they look at it, it's very easy to find that information. When they're looking at your information system, it should be very easy for them to understand what is their hardware and software information when they're looking for information about what's going on with a router. It's easy for them to understand how to find processes, checklists, how do I actually accomplish a task, and important for them to be able to know exactly where do I go to find a password. And standardization and structure give them that. So this is an example of what this looks like inside of IT Glue. You don't have to use IT Glue for it, but this is a blueprint for how you can build structure and standardization. So you can see on the left-hand side there of IT Glue, all of the information is organized into these buckets to make it very easy to find information. If I'm looking for a list of vendors, I've got all my vendor management documentation there on the vendors tab. If I want information about the wireless network for a specific site, here I'm within a specific site and I have my wireless information documented on the left-hand side, so I know exactly where to go and find information about the wireless for this location. If I want licensing information, likewise, that's all there, structured and standardized. So for this specific organization that I'm looking at, my information is there on the left-hand side, so I can very easily find it. Once I'm in that specific asset category, then I have all of my documentation in the main part of the screen where it's very easy to find. And because I'm in IT Glue, I don't have to do all of these things myself. I didn't have to create all this. IT Glue provided it for me through the standard built-in templates for all this documentation. So there's a large collection of SOPs that are built right into IT Glue that can simply be imported and made available to the users in a structured and standardized way. Likewise, all those assets you saw on the left-hand side are structured and formatted, so they're all identical for every different organization that I'm looking at, and it's all built right into IT Glue. If you don't have IT Glue, you can do the same type of thing with like a wiki type structure where you can build it out yourself or in a SharePoint. It's just a lot more work to be able to build and maintain all of that information. But what's critical is that all of the information is structured so that way you don't have this huge learning curve. Every time you go to look at an organization, the information should look and feel the same, so that way your technicians aren't having to go figure out where is the specific information they're looking at. They should just know, if I'm looking for LAN information, I click on the LAN flexible asset and I see all of my LAN information, or I click on the LAN button and I see all my LAN information. I'm not having to go and figure out how a specific area or organization is documented. So that's really what we mean by structure. Now, we all know one of the biggest pain points in documentation is keeping it up to date. Information gets documented and then never updated. Information changes all the time in real time. Things like IP addresses are constantly changing, so it's very difficult to keep this information up to date. So the ways that we believe that you should be automating is one, through integrations. Your information system should integrate with the technical tools that you're using, so you don't have to go and look up things like IP addresses in order to update your documentation. If you don't have the integrations available to you, automated network discovery can drive a lot of that automation. And finally, automated workflows can help ensure that information gets kept up to date. So with IT Glue, we integrate with over 65 different solutions to help drive all of your documentation so you don't have to manually update this. We integrate with Jamf Pro and 18 other endpoint management solutions, so we can pull in your hardware asset information automatically. We integrate with Azure Active Directory, so we can pull in all of your user information, ServiceNow for asset management, Microsoft 365 for user information, and then backup tools like spanning cloud apps, so that way we can get all of your cloud backup information all into IT Glue. Those are just a sample of some of the integrations. As I mentioned, we have over 65 integrations to IT Glue to help drive a lot of this. Here you can see an example of our integration with Jamf Pro, where we're pulling in information about this MacBook Pro. We automatically document it, including all of the configuration interfaces for this device. And on the right-hand side, you can see the related documentation to this device. So if I'm looking for information about this configuration because I have a ticket open relating to it and I need to know what kind of CPU is running on this machine, I can see that here. And then I can also see on the right-hand side information relating to this system. So if I need to log in, I've got the password there on the right-hand side. I've got the SOP for a new user setup. Everything's at my fingertips, so I'm not having to jump around into a bunch of different places to find this information. Here you can see a collection of integrations. They're all set up together in order to be able to ensure that data is not duplicated from all these different systems that we're pulling in information in from. So everything gets deduplicated and you get the best version of the information inside of your IT Glue. If we pull in information from Intune and we get the same information about the same piece of hardware from Jamf Pro, we will merge that data together and show you the unique set of data from the different systems. We also have automated network discovery built right into IT Glue. So we'll scan an environment, find out what's going on it, and document that inside of your IT Glue. So we'll do things like interrogate your switches and be able to pull all of the different connected devices, document them in IT Glue when you're looking at your switches, so we can go a layer deeper and give you more information than what we can get through cloud APIs through our integrations in those different tools. And we can build this topology map so you can very easily visualize your systems to be able to understand exactly how things are connected together. Here's an example of the Microsoft 365 integration and Office 365 integration, where we've pulled Jackie Till's information from both of those different systems and we've merged them together to show you the best version of that information. So Jackie here has got a couple of different email addresses in these different systems. We're showing you the unique set, not the none of the duplicate data. And again, we've got all of her security group information and other related information documented on the right-hand side. All of this comes automatically from Microsoft 365 and Active Directory through our integration with Network Glue, where we interrogate Active Directory and pull in all of that security group information, all of the user information, and we document it here right inside of IT Glue. The final area of automation is workflows. Workflows which can trigger actions, trigger automation based on actions taken. So in this example, if I'm retrieving the Office 365 Global Administrator password from IT Glue, I could trigger a workflow to be notified of that, to trigger some other related automation. I can also set up password rotation so I can automatically change Active Directory passwords when they're accessed. If you have service accounts documented in IT Glue, the passwords for them documented in IT Glue, you can change them automatically every time they're used, so that way you never have to worry about somebody using a password and then leaking that password, because it'll be rotated and changed immediately. That user will not know that password. So once they've used it, it'll be changed and they will no longer have access to that system. This really helps you secure those service accounts and ensure you don't have passwords being sprawled all over the place. Here's an example of some automation that we have built in through our workflows, where we'll automatically pull in expiry information for domains. We have the same thing with SSL certificates. So again, you don't need IT Glue to accomplish these types of automation. You can do them yourself using other tools, but you'll have to build that automation and use APIs to be able to write that information to SharePoint or to like a wiki if you're using something like that for this information. Whereas with IT Glue, you get this out of the box. You put a domain in, we'll automatically scrape it, pull in the expiration date into IT Glue, and send you a notification before it comes up for expiry. Likewise with SSL certificates. So ultimately, you want your automation to take the load off of your shoulders, to ensure that you're not spending all of your time on routine tasks and updating information, and instead you can spend your time improving your systems and improving the reliability of your systems to reduce the load on your teams, instead of spending all of your time firefighting and then updating information. Build the automation so you can be more forward-looking and not have to spend all of that time on reactive tasks. So finally, it's critical that you build a culture of documentation to get people away from shoulder tapping, from always having to look for information through their colleagues. The goal ultimately is anytime somebody asks where something is, the answer should be check the documentation, or here's a link to the relevant documentation. So that way, over time, people will stop asking the questions and instead go to the documentation. And if they're relying on that documentation all the time for information, that will in turn reinforce the culture of updating the documentation, making sure that it is always up to date, because they know they individually rely on it. So therefore, it's important that they keep it up to date. This becomes a really nice flywheel where as people self-enforce that documentation, it will then in turn encourage people to do the same thing and update and rely on that documentation. So over time, people will just know, I don't ask the questions because the information is in the documentation system. So some key things that you can measure to help with this is how many documents are being created by your team. How often are your documents being updated? How often are they viewing documents? And one we shouldn't overlook is how often are documents deleted. Deletion is really important because you don't want your documentation system to become overloaded with junk over time, because the more you have in there, the harder it is to find information. There becomes too much signal, too much noise and not enough signal. Next up, completeness is really important, right? You want to make sure that all of your sites are documented, all of your services are documented, and everything is documented in a standardized way, so that way it's easy for you to find that information. So who's actually going to be accountable for these metrics? It's really important that you get your whole team involved, but you appoint documentation leads, people to be your champions or internal promoters of this, and then use a peer review structure, right? Set up a system where people actually are responsible for reviewing the information as it's published, so that way you can ensure that the quality is there and that they reach the standardization objectives that you have. Now, in order to enforce this, we believe that carrots work better than a stick. It's important that people want to engage with this and they're not doing it just because they're scared. So we believe that building a culture of gamification and making it fun for people can really help with that. So key takeaways for success in documentation: consolidate all of your information. Make sure everything is in a single place so you don't need to go and figure out where to find specific pieces of information. Ensure that your information is structured so that way when you're looking at that information, you know exactly where to find it. Right? It's one thing for it all to be one place. It's another thing for it to be usable and to be useful. So structure and standardization ensure that when you're looking at a specific site or organization, that you know exactly where to look and you can find that information extremely easily. And automate as much as possible. Ensure that your information is kept up to date through automation so you don't have to waste your time doing it. And make sure you get notifications for all of your expirations so that way you know when you need to go and update information. This is critical for being able to make sure that your information stays up to date. And finally, build a documentation culture so you can step back from the day-to-day. So your team knows how to go and update this information, and they have a self-reinforcing system to go and keep that information up to date. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I would love to see you at the booth. If you have time, come check us out. We'd love to give you the opportunity to have a look at IT Glue and how it can help build that documentation system for you.